Today we're making embellishments for in and on your junk journals. They have a circle in the middle, they have a strong focal point, but most importantly, they're cheap and they're really easy to make. So I made this one here, so a lovely kingfisher with some text and some splattered paint behind. I made this one with a bit of scrap paper behind the circle and just a beautiful butterfly that I've added some metallic paint to. And I've got this one here, which is a little mushroom with some handwriting. I've punched out a little flower and I've added a bit of washi. So you can use digitals to decorate these, or you can definitely use images from old books. And I've got some suggestions of books to share today so that you can do that too if you don't have digitals. These would be perfect for maybe on the cover of a junk journal. So if you're struggling for a design feature, you could add that there. They're definitely great for adding to a page. Let's just show you. So if I turn the page, I need a little bit more on here. So maybe my kingfisher could go over there. If you want to, you could mass make them and then you could add them to the front of a journal card. And of course, if you have a plain envelope or a plain pocket, they'd be perfect for putting on those. They're made from a lightweight masterboard. So the base means we're using actually a used exercise or notebook and some book pages today. I'm really excited about this project because of three key things. They're cheap to make because the supplies are basic. You get to use your own creative flair, and there's no special equipment. You actually don't even have to have a punch. I've got the process steps, I've written those out and they're in Pinterest. Feel free to take a screenshot. Let's play and make some lovely, easy embellishments. There are so many different ways that you can use these embellishments for sticking onto the front of things or for decorating a journal page, but I also think these have got lots of different components that can be used. So it makes it really cheap to make them because you can use what you have. And I thought I would give you a few suggestions by sharing what's on my desk, as I sometimes do, and just pointing a few things out. So over to the right here, probably what's pretty key to making these is the glue that I use. And because we're going to make a lightweight masterboard, I've got more of a liquid glue. In fact, I have questions about this. I mix things like tacky glue and this one, which is a wood adhesive, and I mix up about 50-50 into an old glue bottle, and I get a texture and a thickness that works well for making a masterboard. So I'm also going to use stick glue when we come to do the collage and adding a focal point on the front. I have some washi tape there. Now the punch, I am going to use a punch today. This is a large one. I'll give you dimensions later. It has a fluted edge and I quite like that. Let's see, this one is a woodware punch, but I know there are other varieties. You don't have to have a punch. So certainly you could get creative and use maybe an upturned glass, cut around it. You could even tear to make the circle, because I don't think it actually matters if the circle isn't absolutely perfect. And I'm moving over here, you can see the little bit of mess on my desk. I've got some punches, I pulled those out and I added some texture to the front of one of these little embellishments by punching and just adding a few layers of a flower. I think I put a dot in the middle to give it a centre. I've got some scrap paper up there and some little bits to pull on. I've got another, what I will call a free supply. These are old eyeshadows, so I'm going to use those in the decoration. It's great to be creative. It makes me feel really good using up supplies like this that didn't get proper use in their normal life. I've got a few more bits of washi tape. This is the pile of lightweight masterboards that I've been making, and in fact, because they're so easy, I've got a whole stack of them either made up, ready to punch out, or ready to decorate, and I'll show you how to do that. Again, I'll give you options for how to do it, so that you may use an iron and a bit of wax if you want to, or you might want to paint on them, you might want to splat. I'll give you some really easy techniques, a few different ways. Another old and cheap supply I'm going to use today are they're called oil pastels. They're really not. They are cheap crayons and they're not very good, and I'm going to use those in a different way today. I have suggestions of books to share. So these are books with focal points so that you don't have to use digitals. You can just, let me show you one. You can just maybe find some of these books and rip out the element, the part that you want. Maybe you just want the petals and the flower at the top. So I've got a book about trees. That's an option. These are all small, so they work really well on those small circles. I've got another wildflower book here, Reader's Digest, and one that's probably more readily available, Wildflowers. So a really good one for focal points, a field guide to colour, a field guide in colour to wildflowers. Let's get that right. I also have an old notebook that's been written on and a book, so we're going to use that for the lightweight masterboard. And over here you can see some other digital images I might use. That's a junk mail journal that I made the other week. So these are the supplies that we're going to play with today. Get creative and think what you've got that is an alternative, or maybe find some of these. And the first thing we want to do is grab some of that paper and put together one of those lightweight masterboards, which is really quick and easy. So we're going to make a thin masterboard base, a lightweight one. So we're on step 2, and I'm going to gather just some old notebook pages and some book pages to make them with. And as we're only going to do a lightweight or thin one, we don't need very many sheets. So I'm going to use a couple of pages from a scribbly exercise book, a notebook, and you can see it doesn't matter, we've got notes on here, these can be used. And I'm also going to use a couple of pages, maybe 3 pages from a textbook. Now this is certainly not my forte, I couldn't even tell you what this means. I need about 3 or 4 pages from this one. This was donated. Parasitic oscillations, I mean, what does that mean? This was donated from my other half, so why don't we tear off 4 pages just to be safe. So I'm treating this as donated or free, and I'm treating the papers, the exercise book, what shall we call those? Well, they're definitely waste, aren't they? We're upcycling our waste. These are splatters of paint. I've also got eyeshadow integrated into the paper here. I've got splatters of red. I've got some old crayons that quite frankly are pretty rubbish, and I've got some of their colour featuring on here, and it gives that beautiful texture to, let me show you, just come through the background here, so we haven't got that raw feel when we look at this as a whole. We've got interest behind the feature. So I've got couple of options for you. An alternative option for the background when we come to decorate it is this foliage design, and it's quite small. It's got beautiful cranberry red dots on it, and I think if you wanted to make these little embellishments in a more festive holiday Christmas style, you could use something like this and then add maybe a cardinal. That would be a great bird, or a robin, something to feature on the front. I've used crayons more so on this one. I got a gorgeous effect. I like the brown smudge, and I've contrasted that with gold and yellow that's still coming through. On this one, I've rung the changes, and I thought I'd add purple, and I've got golds and orange and a bit of green. So integrate whatever colours you like. If you go for a beautiful teal, you might want to add some blues in your background, whatever works for you. The size of these masterboards is of a little bit of interest. So the ones that I've created today are 34 centimetres across. So across here, 34 centimetres, which is about 13.5 inches. And the reason that I make them this size is to get the most out of the papers. So when I started making these, I made them this width. So I'll just show you. So I made them about 30 centimetres. I just came up with a number and did my gluing, and I found that I ran out of space over here on the right to get the last piece out. So I worked out that for the size of my punch, if I make it 34 centimetres wide, I get nice 4 punches efficiently out of my papers. The punch I'm using is a 3-inch punch, which I think is about 8 centimetres in diameter. So just being as efficient as I can with my time and my papers. If I did a bit of planning, then I got more out of each page. I just thought I'd share that with you. I think I will start with my little scribbled pages of exercise book, and I don't think I want these fluty edges on, although because I've been making up quite a lot of these master boards, I have been gathering many of these. Now I'm torn between, no pun intended, putting these in the recycling. I put all paper in the recycling, or doing something with them. And when I get a lot of one type of thing, whatever that is, whatever the offcut is, I'm always tempted to have a go at making something from them, because if you have a larger number of something, it just makes it efficient to design something and make something from it, and it's so satisfying if you can upcycle as well. I'm just positioning this on my little board here, just makes it easier to put the glue on, and I'm using a liquid glue. This is a mixture, I make up my own mixture, 50% that wood glue that I showed you in the introduction, and also 50% PVA. I'm going to just get that on there, take it to the 34 centimetre point. I'm just using my board to try to get it lined up, so we'll be able to get 4 holes punched out. I think what you could do if you don't have a punch and they're bulky and they're not cheap is you could put an upturned glass on your masterboard and you could cut around it. You could cut around it with those serrated scissors and get a pretty edge. You could even tear it, because for an image like this, I don't think it actually matters if you haven't got a perfect edge. So improvise, use what you have and have fun. Let's get the pages down. So I've just put my base 1 layer, a goodly amount of glue, and I'll go over this again. Can go in the left hand corner. I'll no doubt need to do some patching at the top. So this is a thinner masterboard than the ones I've done in the past. So I've made a few in the past. Ooh, we like those diagrams, don't we? And I've done them with probably about 4 or 5 pages of thickness, and they come out feeling rather nice. I've made tags out of them, so thicker ones do work better for those tags. And I have made a junk journal cover, and then I gessoed it. I added some nice images, made it look really pretty and vintage. It was a lot of fun. Let's just patch at the top here. I don't even mind if I've got text on the side for this, because it's all just interesting for the eye. Glue that down there. Doing well, aren't we? And the other point about the size of that book, so this is quite a big one. It's really, again, just being efficient with my time. So I've started with a slightly larger book to play with, so that I don't need to do quite as many pages gluing down. So that's all there is to the creation of the basic masterboard. What I've done is been a bit more efficient today, and I've speeded things up. I've actually made quite a few of these in advance, and I'm going to give you some more details now, more options for how to do some of that decoration. So these are the dried lightweight masterboards. Lovely and crinkly. Listen to that. We like that, don't we? And I thought I'd just very quickly share how I did the background, just so if you want to do the painty solution, you can do it. So with no special set of paints. These are my well-worn, well-loved Arteza watercolour paints. I think I'll just show you very quickly how I create some of that effect. So I've splattered with red, and this would be great actually going into the autumn season or Christmas if you wanted to have maybe a robin or a bird that reflected the Christmas season. So a cardinal, I think that would work really well. So all I would do to create this is just think about the size of those leaves and the branches as you're doing it. Let's get a bit of water on my greens. You know I'm never particularly accurate. I just play and do whatever I feel like in the moment. So I would light-handed give myself a bit of a stalk, maybe build that out, add a few little extra branches, and it's very quick this, which is nice, but does feel very satisfying. And then maybe with some other colours, just add smallish, maybe get some yellow in that, smallish leaves. So the key, I think, is to not go for the larger leaves, which we've maybe done in the past, but just touch the paper with a paintbrush and start to build up a collection of smaller leaves. And I think that means that when you add an image later on the front of your embellishment, you're going to get something that feels like a collection of little leaves behind in the image. You won't just have one great big one. So it builds up really quickly. It doesn't really matter what the branches are, what they look like. If you want to, you can get your paintbrush nice and wet and go in with some red. And red always feels like a great colour for making your image pop. And I found that I quite liked large blobs. So I probably should put this in my splat box. But just for speed, I just wet that red. Oh, it's lovely, isn't it? And great big thwacks give you some rather large berries, and that's really nice too. So that would be one way of adding a background set of texture to your masterboard. The other way that I just want to play with today is a bit of an adaptation of the wax paper that I created in a DIY vintage paper video recently. Now this is an amendment, so it is a bit different, and I listened and read all of the comments on that video, and I've changed an approach and I'm using a different approach, so to get something really interesting as background for each of these. So on this one you can see just a little bit of the yellow and the brown peeping through. I've got handwriting on, and I went round with pencils just to give a border to this little image. So get creative and have a play with what you've got. So very quickly just decorating a second style of masterboard. This is where I'm going to use my iron. So I'm going to start with the splats of paint and the colour, and this is where the change comes from what I've done before. So I'll pick up, let's just use something different. I'll pick up a couple of my other well-used and well-worn palettes of paint. I'm finding this gold to be my best friend. Get a bit of that on. I won't do a perfect board, and I've got one that we can cut up, but just to illustrate the point, so I don't have to finish this. Mindful of time, I'll just get some of that on. And what I really like to do with these, because I typically add something like a butterfly or a bird or a toadstool or mushroom, I really love these sort of olive green, natural greens. I've made a right mess of that yellow. Not really bothered. Get some of that on. Very easy. Like I say, should be doing it in a splat box, but apparently I'm not. Oh, that's a nice one, isn't it? Some bold brown there. So I've got something with some pretty colours. Bit of red, maybe. And then let's use up some of our supplies. I am going to go in with, let's go for our eyeshadow graveyard, a really ugly collection of items which would otherwise go in the bin. That's a very soft one. I've not used this one before on the paper. It'll be interesting to see how that comes out. This one has got an orange in it that I think I want to have a little bit of a hack at. Scrape a bit of that. And what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of wax on top so that the wax holds the powder, the mica, the colour, the powder in. And this is the change from my previous video, where actually great suggestions in the comments are to do some of the colouring before. I think it worked when I made my vintage paper, but this is an alternative. So I've got some eyeshadow on there, and then I'm going to have a play with some ugly crayons. So this is a set of crayons where I thought I was being very smart buying something super cheap, and to be frank, I don't think they really do anything. However, what's interesting is, although you don't think they've got a lot of pigment when you're crayoning with them, when I melt a little bit, I get some little spots of colour and a bit of texture. So what I've been doing is, as you can see, I have a craft knife, and I'm just sort of scraping little pieces off, distributing them around. Nowhere near as much as I would need if I wanted to integrate wax into all of the paper, but the idea is that you get wax in parts, and these are little pigmented dots of colour, so little bits of wax with colour in them. And to be frank, I just feel like I'm winning a medal because I'm using stuff up, and I would love a bit of feedback on that actually. I just get a bit of a buzz when I use stuff that I've got, and I don't just give up. I make really good use of it, I'm enjoying the process, and I get something beautiful at the end. I love doing that. So this is my tub of wax. Actually, it smells amazing when you open the lid. So these are my used, what do we call them? They're little wax melts that are past their best. Suggestion from the previous video was use a cheese grater, which is a very wise suggestion. The idea is I'm just going to give it a bit of robustness and help all of those things that we've added, like the paint, the eyeshadow, which is powdery, just blend together and hold on the paper so that we get a really interesting background for our embellishment. What I'm going to do is heat the iron and then melt this. One of the tips I have for this stage of the process means it's a good idea to create 2 of these lightweight masterboards at the same time. So do 2, and then you've got one to put on top. So decorate the face of this in the same way and put it on top so that you've got 2 fronts facing each other, and it will just be that much quicker to iron, and also you get a bit of protection on your iron. I've not got a huge amount of wax on here, and I would say you don't have to add the wax. If this is messy, you don't have the equipment, don't worry. Use whatever you've got in your supplies, just add a little bit of colour and texture onto that masterboard. Let's be brave and turn up the heat. I'm still experimenting with this technique, and I think, isn't that part of the fun, that every time you do something like this you might come up with new ideas and questions and thoughts for how you might do something different, and it becomes very much your own process, reflecting your own supplies. And I think you probably know from my organisational videos I'm a bit of a hoarder, and yeah, okay, I'm obsessed with paper too, but I like to use what I've got, and I like the challenge of looking at what I've got and seeing what I can do. And this just sort of, it met the brief. And just peel back, and oh, I have actually got some of what I wanted. I've even got it on both sides. This was actually plain. I didn't have anything coloured on there, but I've pretty much got what I wanted. So the colours I really like, and I've got green pigment coming from those really cheap crayons. I've got gold paint, which is quite prominent now, very visible in those splats. That is a beautiful contrast to the green. And I've got the eyeshadow. Oh, some of that's still coming off. I probably need a bit more wax on there. I'm going to do remedial measures. I've not put in enough wax over all of that eyeshadow. Not everything always goes right first time. I know that it works, or can be made to work, because I tested it. So on this one, it doesn't come off because the wax has gone on top. So I might just do a tiny bit more of waxing over some of that. Ooh, quite different actually. We've got more of a watery effect, but it's drying as the wax settles. And it's definitely holding in the eyeshadow, but it's mixed the colours up a bit more, and I've got more of a mica based effect, and then I've got a bit of this crayon independently over here. What's this one like? That's definitely melted it in. Yeah, I've still got visible gold. It's like little sea river from a distance. So it's a different effect. I've still got my green there. And when your board is dry enough and cool enough, we can punch out some of those circles. So like I said, this is a large punch, but you could draw around with an upturned glass and cut around it. You could cut around it with those serrated scissors, couldn't you, and just see how that looks. So I am going to take a couple of punches of this. And another reason I kept it quite lightweight, just not many layers, is I don't actually want it to be too hard to punch out. And if I made a masterboard with maybe 3 or 4 layers, by the time you've got glue on there as well, it starts to be just a little bit thick and maybe difficult for punching out. So I was going to do a couple of these. I thought maybe a mushroom, maybe a bird, but why don't we challenge ourselves and do something from that book? Can we find something in here which is proportionate and do something with it? What have we got? That's nice, isn't it? What else have we got? So this is A Concise Guide in Colour, Herbs. The images are quite big relative to this, but I can probably find one that works. That's very dainty. That's very nice. I like the colours of that one too. So this has got blues in the green, and I did splat this one with some blues in that green. So let's have a go with that. And maybe do that one first, and then we'll have a go at one of the others. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll just spend a few seconds towards the end showing you some of the samples I've made up, so that you've got some more ideas, because they're all a little bit different. And that's very tall. Not too tall, actually. Maybe take a bit off the base. And I want it to be a bit lighter, not quite so dominant. So that could go, that's quite nice, isn't it? I like it to extend beyond. And all I'm going to do with this is just give it a few extra elements just to make it feel like it's sitting on a base. I've got some green here, that will lighten things up. In fact, I prefer that colour of green. So at this point I'm going to swap over to my stick. Let's get some in the middle. I don't want to cover up too much of the green that's already on there. That's nice. I think I'll have something extra on here. What I've done on some of the other samples is actually get a black gel pen out and write, just in handwriting. So a goodly bit of glue and just enough to touch the text, because I want it to feel joined up. Just with a bit of packaging paper. It's just not quite, oh, that's so much better. That's so much better. You've got to go by your instinct, haven't you? So let's get a bit more glue on here and just add it to the left. And in fact, you've got a choice with these as to how big you get them to be. You could just keep building out and make it proportionate to the ephemera item that you want to decorate. I do like that, and I can't resist the temptation of a tiny bit, just a little bit there, to break out that long side there that's all white, and then maybe just a little bit down at the bottom. Tiny bit here, just a tiny bit. Just get that there. So there's one with a flower. Shall we do one with a bird, or shall we do one with a mushroom instead? And for the mushroom, so I've got a few little pretty pictures. I'll show you what I did. We'll take that one again. And what I want is an upright here. So a piece of paper that is just going to give the eye a little bit of a vertical interest. Let's get that on there. It's very quick, isn't it? I'll put my little image on, and because it just needs a bit more definition, I'm going to go round with my pencils again, just choosing to do whatever you feel like. I want something a bit darker, nice dark green, maybe a bit of brown. This is a great trick for just making your images pop. And I'm bringing the pigment onto the image intentionally just to make it less harsh a difference between the border of pencil and the image. I'm going to go all over. And I think what I like to do is just find a black pen and put some handwriting on it. What shall we say? So we have a flower and a mushroom. I'll just show you one or two of the others, then you can get some ideas from the ones that I've already made. So here's a little pile now of ones we can play with in our junk journals. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and I'm really pleased that we just used a page from an old book. The one that we wrote on, beautiful little mushroom. I think the birds work really, really well. How bold is that? On this one, I've extended with a piece of collage paper just a bit of scrap, and I thought about the colour and I added the teal here and here, so it all just works together. If you want to use your ephemera and you want some inspiration, then check out my video 12 junk journal page ideas that work every time. Lots of inspiration, lots of examples, lots of fun that you can have filling your junk journal. I hope to see you soon.